My fellow Hyborian Age enthusiasts, welcome back to the show. Sorry for not being quite as active on the channel as of late. I came down with a really nasty cough after I came back from Europe. Not COVID, but, you know, still pretty nasty. Suffice to say, my voice box was not exactly in the best of shape. You can kind of still hear it. I'm a couple of octaves lower in the register, but it's good enough that I can actually start talking to you guys again. And I got some stuff to talk about because we're covering Titan Comics' Conan the Barbarian, the new, well, I should say the recent ongoing series for our favorite Sumerian barbarian. I must say, it usually takes me a couple of issues before I start going into what I like about a ongoing comic, simply because I don't want to, jump in right on the first thing and get disappointed later on. Now that we're on 3 issues in, 4 if you count the prologue that came for a free comic book day, I gotta say, I am really liking what I'm seeing thus far. This is a return to form for the character and for the general comic as it is. This feels far closer to what I wanted when I first heard that Marvel was getting the rights back for Conan the Barbarian to make comics. Because let's face it, they set the high watermark back in the day with Savage Sword and the original Conan the Barbarian ongoing comic. And then they pissed all over it. I mean, they put Conan in the Avengers, for crying out loud. They put King Conan in the future with whatever the hell that was. They did, crossovers with Marvel characters. I mean, they did a Savage Sword of Conan comic that was a complete superfluity and pointless. It's like, what the hell were you even thinking? What were you thinking? I mean, suffice to say, I am quite glad that the license has been taken by the current rights holders, Heroic Signatures, and given to a company that actually seems to know what they're doing. One thing that they did do is bring in some talent from those Marvel days and, give them some room to spread their wings. We're talking about Jim Zub, the current writer for this ongoing series, and right now the artist Roberto Torre, who is doing a spectacular job, as we'll discuss when we're going for the interior artwork. He's also got Jose Villarrubia doing color and lettering by Richard Starkings. And altogether, this team that has been brought together is doing a magnificent job of really bringing back what we all wanted from a ongoing Conan comic. We wanted that feel, and I'm only saying nostalgic feel, because Savage Sword of Conan lives up even to modern readings. There is no nostalgia involved. Even if you never read it before, if you go back to those old comics and read them now, they are still as good as they were back then. That's a testament to the quality that was on display there. And I think if they can keep up the quality that they're showing now, they have a chance of reaching and perhaps even at points surpassing what they had previously. This first storyline, called The Bound in Black Stone, takes Conan back to some of his origins. This takes place around the northern Aquilonian border with Samaria, near Venarium, the ruins of Venarium, I should say, as we saw in that that prelude that was published for Free Comic Book Day, which depicted the Battle of Venarium. Yeah, there's not much left of it, as you can imagine. Conan has been off in the world for a couple of years now. He's done his thieving, he's done some mercenarying, he's done, his general Conaning around the Hyborian world. And now he's, returning a bit to his original stomping grounds, taking a little break of things, as it were. But before he has a chance to do the barbarian equivalent of touching grass, the small border village that he's in, taking a little rest in, is attacked by an army of undead Picts, being preceded by a rather attractive Pictish warrior woman who is trying to warn everybody to get the hell out of Dodge before this undead armada just descends upon them and destroys them, which they don't listen, much to their chagrin, as it turns out, because these things are not messing around, and the massacre on display is definitely on point. This feels like Savage Sword of Conan, the old comic, but in full color. And in fact, the art style by Robert de la Torre, it really much feels like those old John Buscema illustrations. It's got that same style, it's got that same energy to it, the feel of it, but with the added color, just use of color. It's not what Savage Sword of Conan did in black and white was really impressive, but here with the different colors and stuff like that, you can really get a different tone to different scenes based simply on that, and it does work very well in conjunction with the art style and present, and with the events that are being depicted. You get, a feel for, the color of the skies that goes from the setting sun over into the evening, into night, during the course of this single battle in the first issue. And of course, reds do tend to stand out quite well when you get into this kind of like fighting. And it is pretty impressive. You seeing there's one moment where one of the zombie picks gets his head chopped off, only for it to clamp down on a guy's arm. That is some nasty stuff. And that's just the first issue. Second issue, we get into further into the mystery of this, as Brissa, the Pictish woman of the Gurian tribe, and Conan venture forth to try and track this army down, because this was just a raiding party. The main force is headed into Samaria, and Conan's not about to let that happen. So they start tracking this army down, and things, get from bad to worse. Conan's village has obviously been attacked, as you can imagine. Prisoners have been taken. For what purpose? Well, they're nothing good, as we'll see in the next issue after that. But yeah. And there's definitely the recurrence of some ancient evil that I won't go into spoilers about, because it's worth keeping up with these issues at this point and seeing where the story goes from here. The next issue for the conclusion of this storyline drops this month at the end of October. But yeah, the story is well written. Also, there's a good reliance on both spoken dialogue, but also narration, which is something that adds a bit of a prose quality to the story, which is something that I appreciate quite a bit. It was something that was done very well, obviously, in those older comics, but here as well, where you have, obviously the Conan voice, that really, the way he speaks, the way he, talks to people, that's very much on point here. It does feel like Conan, the way he acts in this thing. Like, he's introduced right from the get-go, the first issue, just smacking some asshole in the face during an altercation over some prior mercenary work that he's been doing, and then just beating the ever-loving crap out of this guy, and only then just taking his share of the money and just about ready to leave, and just nah, I'm done with this crap. I'm gonna go do my own thing for a while. And then just sitting in a tavern talking to the local tavern wench. Can I just say the babes in this comic are really good looking? Yeah, I mean, that's something that was mentioned by Jim Zub in an interview, if I can find it here, in regards to the difference between working under Titan and Marvel here. He said, I don't think the Marvel book was necessarily restrictive in the sense that Marvel's got their broader kind of expectation in terms of violence that you can put on the page. Titan's even looser in that way. It's much more like this classic Savage Sword, which I agree. We've got violence in the book that I never would have been able to get away with at Marvel right in the first issue. The violence is intense. We're lopping off limbs. The women are absolutely stunning. It's pretty classic kind of pulp fantasy in that way. There's big love, big violence, and big everything. It is intense. I agree with Mr. Zub on that, because, I mean, not only is, the action is on point there, there's very much the sense of these battles being, brutal and violent. And, there's even some tits in this, in the first issue. It's very subtle. You wouldn't notice it, but right on the second page, there's some boobies right there, which, I've always appreciated in my pulp fantasy, quite frankly. And, of course, we get to see quite a bit of Brissa in the second issue, of which we're also quite grateful, because, damn, girl is quite the warrior as well as quite the woman. And she does hold her own with Conan quite a bit, although never said, there's never that moment where the new character is introduced by surpassing or putting down the main character just to show how badass they are. They work well together, but they're she's not a greater fighter than Conan is. He's still the main character in all this, which is nice to see as well. Although they do rely on each other during these fights, which is good to see. And it is actually kind of interesting in the sense that she is a Pict, and Conan isn't exactly the biggest fan of that particular people due to, several blood feuds between the Sumerians and Picts during the Hyborian Age. But the thing about it is, and it's mentioned during the post-comic wrap-up, where he goes into a bit of detail about some of the links between this storyline and Howard's work in the past. And it very much goes into, the Picts weren't always the, slavering monster savages that they are in the Hyborian Age. Before this and after this, they have quite a bit more dignity to them. And Barissa is part of the tribe that's kind of kept that, as opposed to the others who are... The thing about the Picts is that they are very much the barbarian people equivalent of what the Stygians are to the more civilized ones, corrupted by dark magic and even darker gods during this period. Unlike, you know, the Picts of the Cull area, Brule Spearslayer and his ilk, and the Picts of the later period with Bran MacMorn and, you know, fighting against the Roman Empire at those days. Here, Conan still doesn't trust him, but, you know, she is definitely not of that same culture as the other ones are. The kinds that would follow Jebel Shag and the likes that we'll see in, you know, Beyond the Black River and other stories of that site. And definitely we're glad to have her with us because things get really, really bad. I mean, you have Conan finding his village being utterly devastated, only for the corpses of dead Sumerians to rise up and fight him again. And that is, you know, that is definitely not an easy fight. And then, of course, we get in deeper into things in the third issue, and yeah, things are very, very nasty, and there's definitely some very, very dark things happening. As if, you know, an army of undead Picts wasn't bad enough. There's definitely something unhuman happening here as well. Something perhaps taking back to an also older kind of more reptilian enemies of the Howardian ilk. I won't go into further detail about that, but yeah, things are going to get kind of scaly at certain points. And suffice to say, the third one ends on a bit of a cliffhanger going into the fourth issue, which is going to be the completion of this story arc. After this, there's going to be another storyline starting in from the 5th to 9th. I think they're going like, you know, 4 issues per storyline, and there's going to be some links happening between them. They're kind of jumping around Conan's career for a bit. They're not going like full serialization where it's just like one event after another one. But I am looking forward to seeing what they do with this. The feel I'm getting for this is very much as was described. This is Savage Sword kind of tone and writing style and artwork. This is exactly what I wanted when I first heard that they were going to do another Conan ongoing series. This is perfect. In fact, it's got me a little bit worried about the ongoing Savage Sword that they're going to be doing in 2004. That was going to be full magazine format, black and white. And I'm kind of wondering what they're going to do about that makes it different from this. Because this is already, in terms of tone and content, this is already what the old Savage Sword was, only in color. I'm kind of wondering if that won't make any new Savage Sword of Conan comic ongoing almost superfluous. I mean, what would it do that this one doesn't already do? That's a big question I'd have to ask myself. They're also, you know, Titan Comics is also doing a full reprint of the original Conan the Barbarian and Savage Sword, so that's already good, and full omnibus editions. So, you know, they're really treating this character right as far as I can tell. I'm liking the art for this ongoing. I'm liking the writing of this ongoing. Jim Zub, for all I think for all the problems I had of the runs that were done at Marvel, I think it had to do a lot from, you know, problems coming from the top as opposed to the actual talent. Because from what I've read thus far of this one, he knows what he's doing. This guy understands the character, and he knows how to write for him and write the narration of the story that goes around him. This works really, really well. I like it. And I am hopeful that he can keep up this level of quality and create something that really, really lives up to both the legacy of Robert E. Howard's original creations and Roy Thomas's massive, you know, undertaking during the original 70s and 80s run with Marvel Comics. This has a lot of potential, and I'm hoping they can keep it up, because if it lives up to it, this is going to be something special. In any case, this has been my thoughts on Titan Comics' current run of Conan the Barbarian, currently at issue 3. The issue 4, the end of this particular storyline, is at the end of this month, around the 27th, if I'm not mistaken. So I highly recommend keeping an eye on this and checking it out if you were interested in some good sword and sorcery comics. I've been Zero Sum. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time on the channel, hopefully with my voice box completely recovered. Until then, goodbye.